Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching Eagle News International. Here are tonight's headlines. The brutality of war as a missile strike hits a train station crowded with Ukrainian civilians trying to flee the conflict. The war in Ukraine has also added to fears of skyrocketing global food prices as the UN Food and Agriculture Organization warned that its food price index had made a giant leap to its highest level ever since opening in 1990. And Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett gave security agencies full freedom Friday to curb a surge in violence after a Palestinian gunman killed 3 men in a popular nightlife district. And the first fully private mission to the International Space Station blasted off from Florida with a 4-member crew from startup company Axiom Space. And we begin this hour with the news out of Ukraine. The governor of Donetsk in the eastern part of the country said at least 50 people now are confirmed dead following a rocket strike on a train station in Kramatorsk. Russia's defense ministry denies it was behind the attack.
Точнее, перед моментом взрыва мы собирали группу людей уже на посадку в поезд. Часть была в этой электричке людей, она должна была отправляться. Я находилась конкретно на перроне, где стоит служебная машина. Я выводила группу детей от 5 до 10 лет. У меня была группа около 5 человек. Вышли, услышали первый гул, взрыв. Детей в угол, сверху них лягла. Рядом находились точно так же люди, они точно так же, многие, видимо, читают интернет, смотрят, упали на пол, закрыли голову. В электричке уже были сформированы группы, уже находились люди, они готовились к отправке. Отправка должна была быть через 10 минут. Соответственно, люди уже в ожидании сидели с животными, с детьми, в тамбурах стояли кто-то, кто прощался.
Now, U.S. officials say this was a Russian short-range ballistic missile striking a train station where several thousand refugees waited for passage to safer regions. Baby strollers, body parts, broken glass, and abandoned baggage lay scattered around the station and across the platform. Plastic sheets covering the dead, at least 50 of them. According to local authorities, at least 5 children have been killed in this attack. Ukrainian authorities have been trying hard to evacuate civilians as Russian forces multiply attacks in the south and the east. At least twice this week, civilians have been urged to leave while they can. Meanwhile, Russia once again denies they are behind this atrocity. Instead, they accused Kiev of carrying out the deadly attack on the railway station in the city of Kramatorsk. Let's listen in.
8 апреля украинскими вооруженными силами был нанесен удар тактической ракетой «У» по железнодорожному вокзалу города Краматорска. Тактические ракеты «У», обломки которой обнаружены в районе железнодорожного вокзала Краматорска, применяются только украинскими вооруженными силами.
A senior U.S. official said the attack was carried out by a Russian short-range ballistic missile that was fired from inside Ukraine, part of it lying in a patch of grass. Russia is blaming Ukraine for the strike, saying it doesn't use those kinds of missiles. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, the missile that was used in this attack is something that was commonly used by the Ukrainian military, and that Russians had no activity in that area on Friday. Scenes of chaos, the missile strike left behind bodies, suitcases, strollers. These refugees were trying to escape violence, but instead, it rained down upon them. Earlier on Friday, Donetsk Governor Pavlo Kirilenko said thousands of people had been at the station at the time the rocket struck. Kramatorsk was hit by Russian strikes earlier this week, but had otherwise largely been spared the destruction witnessed by other East Ukrainian cities since Russia's invasion. Meanwhile, Ukraine's President Zelensky called the attack evil without limits, saying he expects a, quote, firm global response to this war crime. Take a look.
Усі провідні держави світу вже засудили російський удар по Краматорську. Ми очікуємо твердої глобальної реакції на цей воєнний злочин, як і масові вбивства в Бучі, як і багато інших воєнних злочинів Росії. Ракетний удар по Краматорську має стати одним із звинувачень на трибуналі, який обов'язково відбудеться.
Now take a look at these images near Kiev's capital Bucha. Ukrainian investigators are beginning to exhume a mass grave. Kiev Regional Police Chief Andrei Niebetov said there were 40 bodies in this grave, including 2 members of Ukraine's military forces. They were gathering evidence of war crimes, victims, ordinary citizens. And officials say they found at least 3 sites of mass shootings during Russia's occupation. Hundreds were believed to have been killed, many still waiting to be found. And EU Commissioner Chief Ursula von der Leyen, along with EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell, visited the devastated Ukrainian town of Bucha and gasped at the horror as she saw the trail of bodies excavated from a mass grave. Ukraine says Russian troops executed civilians. The Kremlin has denied any hand in these killings and denounced photographs depicting the scene as fakery. Meanwhile, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said that Russian President Vladimir Putin has given up on conquering Kiev after his forces were soundly beaten back by the Ukrainian military. But the path of the overall war, 6 weeks after Russia invaded Ukraine, remains uncertain. That according to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, telling a hearing. Take a look.
This is not an easy fight that they're involved in. Ideally, Putin decides to cease fire, stop his aggression, and there's some sort of diplomatic intervention. But right now, that doesn't look like it's on the horizon, the immediate horizon. Yes, I do think the current strategy is the right strategy, which is, number one, do not engage in armed conflict with Russia, United States forces. And second is to continue to support the Ukrainian people and their government with sufficient weapons and arms, et cetera, so that they can help defend themselves. Third is to maintain the cohesion of NATO, because NATO is a very powerful organization, and it's both a military and political alliance in many ways, and it definitely acts as a deterrent. So those are the 3 main objectives the President's laid out for us as the uniformed military.
Now, Secretary Lloyd Austin also told the panel of lawmakers that the U.S. is providing intelligence to Ukraine's military to support the fight in Donbas, where Moscow-backed secessionists have been fighting government forces since 2014 and now have the direct support of Russian troops. But Milley said the fight in that area will be difficult and that to try to push the Russians out, Ukraine will likely need more armed support like tanks. And the escalation of violence in the east of the country comes after Russian troops pulled out of the region of Kiev. Ukraine's southern city of Odessa imposed a weekend curfew over a missile strike threat from Russia after the shelling of a train station that killed dozens in the eastern city of Kramatorsk. Ukraine has warned Russia is regrouping to launch a fresh offensive on the country's east and south after retreating from the Kiev area. Last Sunday, Odessa was targeted by Russian strikes for the first time in 2 weeks. The Black Sea port and cultural hub has so far been spared the destruction seen by other Ukrainian cities. The nearby city of Mykolaiv has suffered worse Russian attacks with a heavy civilian death toll. But Russian moves on the city have so far been rebuffed by Ukrainian forces. Odessa, a largely Russian-speaking city, which the Kremlin claims needs protection, remains vulnerable to attacks, especially from the sea. Now, the war in Ukraine has also added to fears of skyrocketing global food prices, as the UN Food and Agriculture Organization warned that its food price index had made a giant leap to its highest level ever since opening in 1990. FAO said the export disruptions since the Russian invasion of Ukraine had led to a near 20% jump in cereal prices. Here's more.
In March, the food price index registered a 12.6% increase from February, reaching an all-time high. This series goes back to 1990. All sub-indices for the different commodity groups registered significant increases, with the sub-indices for vegetable oils, cereals, and meat also reaching new all-time highs. To say that international food commodity prices are soaring due to a combination of factors. These include adverse weather, higher energy prices and transportation costs, higher fertilizer prices, and strong international demand. As I said, these have driven prices already before the war in Ukraine. Disruption to exports due to the conflict in Ukraine has exacerbated the already difficult situation, putting further upward pressure on prices. Soaring food prices erode food affordability and can have serious consequences for food security and nutrition, especially in low-income food deficit countries, keeping in mind that countries are still struggling with the impacts of COVID-19. Talking about the cereal prices, the sub-index increased by 17.1% in March compared to its value in February. International prices of cereals were largely driven by conflict-related export disruption in Ukraine and the Russian Federation. Now turning to vegetable oils, prices of vegetable oils in March also made a giant leap up, soaring by 23.2% in just 1 month.
Now, conflict has also driven up international prices for wheat, maize, and vegetable oils as war in the Black Sea region spread shocks through the markets trading in these staples. Meanwhile, the Director General of the FAO, Koo Dong-Yu, warned also today that the war in Ukraine will impact consumers across the world as the resulting increases in the price of food, energy, and fertilizers put the next global harvests at risk. Take a look.
The war has taken a heavy toll on Ukraine and its people and could have serious effects on the food security of millions around the world.
Prices for staple foodstuffs such as wheat, vegetable oils have been soaring of late, imposing extraordinary costs on the global consumers, particularly the poorest. The war in Ukraine has made the matters even worse. With the energy prices rising in the parallel with the food prices, the purchase power of the vulnerable consumers and the countries has further decreased. This additional burden comes at a time when the higher health spending and the cost of the controlling the pandemic are already squeezing the budget of many governments and people. The Russia, Federation, and the Ukraine are important players in all three markets of the concern. Together, they account for nearly 30% of global wheat export and about 80% of global sunflower export. And the Russia Federation is the largest exporter of fertilizers. Supply disruptions in these two countries will be felt across the global agri-food systems. Above all, we must not shut down our global trade system, and export should not be restricted or taxed. Producing more and better in other countries and regions of the world is urgently needed.
And 6 weeks into the war in Ukraine, the fragile nutritional status of children in the Middle East and North Africa is expected to worsen. Here's Daniel Johnson from the United Nations.
The war in Ukraine has increased the risk of a massive malnutrition crisis for millions of children in other emergencies because of its already huge impact on global food prices, the UN said on Thursday. 6 weeks since Russia invaded its neighbour, the UN Children's Fund UNICEF said that imports have been disrupted to the Middle East and North Africa, where more than 90% of food has to be shipped in. Prices have also risen for essentials, including wheat, cooking oil and fuel. And if the situation continues, it will severely impact children, especially in Egypt, Lebanon, Libya, Sudan, Syria and Yemen, UNICEF said. Adel Koder, who's UNICEF's regional director for the Middle East and North Africa, warned that families are unable to cope with unprecedented food price hikes caused by ongoing conflicts, political instability, the COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine. According to UNICEF, less than 4 in 10 young children in the Middle East and North Africa get the diets they need to grow and develop properly. Meanwhile, inside Ukraine, new satellite images have confirmed that the destruction of cities besieged by Russian forces is ongoing. According to high-definition photographs provided by the UNISAT service, damage to Mariupol increased by about 6% between the 26th of March and the 3rd of April. Much of this increase was in the coastal harbour and steel mill areas, UNISAT said in its latest update. Satellite footage from Bucha, where hundreds of Ukrainian civilians have been found killed following the withdrawal of Russian troops, shows that just over a quarter of the city has been badly damaged. Daniel Johnson, UN News.
And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Umpisa ito ng second season.
Nagbabalik ang nag-iisang Diamond Star!
Moises Soriano!
Diba? Kebongga-bongga!
Nanonood po ako ng TV.
Ay, ganun po ba? Eh, sino po ba idol mo siya po?
Zin Miss Moises Soriano.
Nakakaloka?
Dito lang sa...
Hero City!
Parang pawis ka na, Erwin. Wait lang, punasan kita.
Galit ka ba? Hindi. Ano ba ka nagagalit mo? Wala nga. Nagagalit ka ba kasi nakita namin Erwin na more sweet na sweet? Nagsaselos ka, no? Nina, tigilan mo ko. Hindi ako nagsiselos. Baka ikaw.
Ano ba talaga trip mo kay Aman?
Close na close kayo ngayon eh.
Wala namang masama. Running mates kami.
Bakit sa akin napunta yung selos? Ikaw nga itong nagdadabog ka papunta dito kung ano nung... Hindi nga ako nagsiselos. Hindi malaking kawalan si Erwin, okay?
Panalo o talo, it's you! Weeknights pagkatapos ng Mi Esperanza. Dito lang sa Net25, Prime Time ng Pamilya.
At least 3 people have been killed in the city of Tel Aviv. Police received reports of shootings at multiple locations, and one of them a popular nighttime hangout in the center of the city. Israel's Premier Naftali Bennett pledges to fight terrorism with a heavy hand to curb surging violence in the city. Let's listen in.
אנחנו נילחם בטרור ביד קשה וננצח. זה אפשרי. טרור אינו גזרת גורל. בהלה והיסטריה הם לא תוכנית פעולה. אני קורא פה גם לכלי התקשורת לגלות אחריות וקור רוח, לא לזרוע פאניקה מיותרת בציבור. זאת לא תוכנית ריאליטי, אלא החיים שלנו, וכושר העמידה שלנו כעם, כחברה, הוא חיוני.
רצתי לשם עם עוד 2, הגענו לשם ראשונים לדעתי. בדרך ראינו בערך 20 מטר מהבר עצמו, ראינו כבר פצוע ראשון עם כדור בחזה. אנחנו התקדמנו לתוך הבר, ממש לרחבה. הייתה בחורה על הרצפה, לדעתי קיבלה כדור בבטן, ובפנים הייתה קטסטרופה אני עדיין מעכל אותה.
ישבנו, שתינו בירה, היו שם הרבה חבר'ה צעירים. היה אווירה טובה, ואז פתאום שמענו בומים. אני חושבת שזה היה העירייה השנייה או השלישית שפגעה בזכוכית, ואז באותו רגע הבנו שזה ירי ולא איזה נפצים או משהו אחר.
Meanwhile, Israeli security forces raided the Flashpoint West Bank district of Jenin today, killing a Palestinian and wounding others after vowing there will not be limits to curb surging violence. This ongoing operation came after an alleged gunman from Jenin went on a shooting rampage in a popular Tel Aviv nightlife area on Thursday evening, killing 3 Israelis, wounding more than a dozen others. A total of 14 people have already been killed in attacks in Israel since March 22, including some carried out by assailants linked to or inspired by the ISIS group. Over the same period, at least 10 Palestinians have also been killed, including assailants. The Palestinian Islamist movement Hamas, which controls the Gaza Strip, and the Islamic Jihad group praised the Tel Aviv attack, drawing criticism from the United Nations, but did not claim responsibility. Thursday's deadly attack came amid heightened tensions during the Muslim month of Ramadan. Another twist in Pakistan's constitutional crisis. Prime Minister Imran Khan is fighting for his political survival after the Supreme Court ruled against it. Tempers rose as opposition alliance leader Shehbaz Sharif insisted a vote be held immediately, but Khan loyalists demanded discussion first on their leader's claims that there had been foreign interference in the process. Take a look.
This agenda item and no other item. That is the intent of this order. You cannot deviate from this, and therefore I conclude my submissions. I will request you, please go for the voting on the resolution. Thank you very much. ये दिन आज कौम को देखना नसीब हुआ.
Without giving a reason, the speaker adjourned the proceedings without giving a reason after just 30 rowdy minutes, ordering lawmakers to return in the afternoon. Imran Khan, who was not present, has lost his majority in the 342-seat assembly through defections by coalition partners and members of his own party, and the opposition need just 172 votes to dismiss him. Khan, 69, said late Friday he had accepted a Supreme Court ruling that ordered the no-confidence vote, but insisted he was a victim of a regime change conspiracy involving the United States. Washington has denied any involvement. The former international cricket star said he would not cooperate with any incoming administration and called on his supporters to take to the streets. The Supreme Court ruled Thursday that Khan acted illegally by dissolving Parliament and calling fresh elections after the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, a loyalist, refused to allow an earlier no-confidence vote because of foreign interference. The court ruled that this was unconstitutional. And Hong Kong's executive chief election is taking shape with Beijing approving former Chief Secretary John Lee's resignation. He resigned on Wednesday, saying he intends to run for the top job. He's currently the only person to have announced a leadership bid in what Hong Kong media have widely reported will be a race with no rivals at Beijing's request. Take a look.
Fellow citizens of Hong Kong, good afternoon. The Central People's Government has approved my resignation and relieved me of the post of the Chief Secretary for Administration of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. I now announce my decision to stand for the election for the sixth-term Chief Executive of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. This decision is made out of my loyalty to my country, my love for Hong Kong, and my sense of duty to Hong Kong people. To increase Hong Kong's overall competitiveness, Hong Kong must maintain its characters of being an international metropolis.
A former top cop, John Lee, became Hong Kong's #2 official after 4 decades in the security services, and he oversaw the police response to the democracy protests 3 years ago and its subsequent crackdown. He's also one of 12 Hong Kong and Chinese officials, including outgoing leader Carrie Lam, who were sanctioned by the United States for their role in that clampdown. Hong Kong's next leader will be chosen on May 8 by a committee of around 1,500 elite figures vetted for their loyalty to Beijing, roughly 0.02% of the city's population. In other news, Japan and the Philippines agreed to boost security ties in their first foreign and defense ministerial meeting today, amid worries over China's increasingly assertive maritime activities. It was the first so-called 2+2 talks between the two U.S. allies, both of which have overlapping territorial claims with Beijing. Our two countries share serious concern about the situation in the East and South China Sea, and we agreed to ensure observing international laws, including the 2016 arbitral award to the Philippines in disputes with China, as well as the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, Japan's Foreign Minister Yoshimasa Hayashi said. In that meeting, Hayashi also said that they were able to confirm to further enhance collaboration in dealing with regional and global challenges and cooperation towards the realization of the free and open Indo-Pacific. Philippine Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana echoed that, saying, "We exchange views on regional securities of common concern, notably freedom of navigation and overflight and compliance with international laws, including the 2016 tribunal decision." Areas of cooperation include ensuring safety of sea lanes in Southeast Asia and discussion towards expanding joint military drills and exchanges, among others. Besides the Philippines, Japan has formed a 2+2 framework with 8 other countries: the U.S., Australia, Britain, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, and Russia. To the Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, or DRC now, where armed groups have continued to terrorize families, forcing thousands to flee for their lives. In an alert on Thursday, UN Children's Fund UNICEF said that conditions are dire and deteriorating at Ro refugee camp in Ituri province, where people are effectively trapped on a remote hill. The camp is home to more than 60,000 people, and more than half are children. Take a look.
I think the problem is the conflict's been going on for a long time. I think that the international community doesn't know how to solve the problem because the problem is so difficult. You know, all you know is that there are militias fighting militias. People are being killed here in terrible numbers, but nobody really quite understands it. Even a staff person who's been here for years told me he has trouble understanding exactly what's going on. But at the end of the day, the problem is innocent people are being killed. Children are being killed here, and that's what we have to respond to. And yes, people are weary of it. I understand that. People are weary of these conflicts that never end, but the people are still suffering. This problem is still here, and these people are still suffering, and we need to help them.
Now, many arrived here last November after being driven from another camp in the town of Jojo that was attacked by men wielding machetes. This, UNICEF explained, was just one of the latest bouts of violence that have plagued eastern DRC for decades and displaced around 5 million people. In an appeal for help to end the insecurity, UNICEF Executive Director Catherine Rosell warned that there have already been outbreaks of respiratory illnesses, diarrhea, and malaria. In other news, a British man and French teenager were rescued today, 3 days after going missing while diving in Malaysia. The trio and their instructor got into trouble Wednesday after they surfaced from a dive near a southern island but could not find their boat. Let's listen in.
I would like to officially announce now that we have rescued 2 divers that was reported missing while doing scuba diving activities in Pulau Sanggol on the 6th of April 2002. Both individuals are Alexia Alexandra Molina, 18 years old, French nationals, and Adrian Peter Chesters, 46 years old, British. They are survived and now in the hospital and in stable condition. While another victim, Nathan Rance Chesters, is still missing, and we are relentlessly doing our search and rescue to find him.
Now, as mentioned, the Briton, 46-year-old Adrian Chesters, and French woman Alexia Molina were discovered by fishermen in the waters of neighboring Indonesia, picked up by marine police, and then taken back to Malaysia. The instructor, Norwegian woman Christine Grodem, had already been rescued on Thursday in waters of southern Malaysia. Chester's son, 14-year-old Nathan, who holds Dutch citizenship, remains missing, and officials believe he has drifted into Indonesian waters. After a dive lasting about 40 minutes, they surfaced but could not find their boat, and then they drifted together in strong currents, but they ended up getting separated. The captain of the boat who took them to the dive site has been arrested after testing positive for drugs. The area where the accident happened is popular with foreign and domestic visitors. Resorts dot the coast and the islands. And torrential rains and flooding have killed at least 12 people at a mining camp in the mountainous northwest Colombia, where another 2 reported missing and more damage is expected. Mayor Hector Urrego told local television that the flooding at the Abriaqui in the Antioquia department surprised a group of miners as they were eating dinner on Wednesday evening. The flooding destroyed one level of the mining camp as well as part of a plant, according to the Antioquia government. Several rural roads were made impassable by the landslides. News continues. Zero Eagle News. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Panoorin ang pagronda ng mga masisipag na barangay tanod. Ano lamang mo sa ating mga Tana Gamers?
Masyado po tayo sexy.
I think, agad-agad. Yan ang mga barangay tanong natin. Alam nila yung Paro-Paro G! Ngayong linggo, alas 7 ng gabi sa Net 25!
The World
just celebrated the International Women's Month to commemorate the cultural, political, and socioeconomic achievements of women around the globe. Sa ating bansa, progresibong isinusulong ang pagtataguyod ng mas maraming oportunidad para sa mga kababaihan pagdating sa iba't ibang sektor ng lipunan. Nakilala natin ang mga kababaihang nagpakitang gilas sa iba't ibang larangan, sa gobyerno, sa negosyo, sa sports at entertainment, at maging ang mga nasa labor workforce, sa on-site environment man, o sa digital economy. In this episode, we will be joined by Binibining Pilipinas Universe 2000, Miss Nina Ricci Alagao Flores, to know her thoughts about the important role of women in business and in our society.
Do not be afraid. This might be the perfect time for you to get started. Who knows that little idea of yours for a small business might bloom into something really big.
All these in this episode of Open for Business.
May mga natural na version para sa maselan mong kutis. Sabi nga nila, don't panic, it's organic!
Napakadaling ibenta ang organic makeup kasi meron kang unique selling factor.
All-natural makeup natin, yun yung multi-use makeup natin. So, pwede mo siya sa gawing eyeshadow, pwede mo siyang blush on, tapos pwede mo siyang lipstick.
So, ang ginawan ko ng tutorial yung client ko, and then pagka-post ko ng video, nag-million views agad.
At ang kitaan, pwedeng pagbula ng kabuhayan. Ako po si Mariel Rodriguez Padilla at ito po ang Unlad, kaagapay sa hanap buhay.
Welcome back. Belgian authorities ordered the closure of a Kinder chocolate factory suspected to be behind a wave of salmonella cases in several European countries and the U.S. Meanwhile, Ferrero extended a recall of its Kinder chocolate eggs in Britain and Ireland over possible links to these cases. Our correspondent from the United Kingdom, Patricia Rodriguez, reports from London. Pat.
Italian confectionery group Ferrero said it was extending a recall of its Kinder chocolate eggs in Britain and Ireland over possible links to salmonella cases. More than 100 cases of salmonella poisoning in Europe could be linked to a chocolate factory in Belgium. European Union regulators said that the ongoing analysis of the outbreak pointed to a chocolate production facility in Ireland. Ireland is located on the border with Luxembourg and it's home to a factory operated by Italian food giant Ferrero. Salmonella is a type of bacteria that can cause symptoms including diarrhea, fever, and stomach cramps in humans, and it's one of the most common foodborne infections. While the situation remains the same, we are fully aware that Easter is approaching, where we see an increase in sales of these products, Ferrero said in a statement. Therefore, as an additional precautionary measure, today we have decided to voluntarily recall the products due to these additional products having been manufactured in the same facility in Belgium within the same time frame. The products affected are the 20-gram eggs or the pack of 3 with the best before date between July 11th and October the 7th. Britain's Food Standards Agency has said 63 cases of salmonella have been identified across the UK. In France, 21 cases have been reported and 15 reported having eaten the Kinder products that have now been recalled. Reporting from United Kingdom, this is Patricia Rodriguez. Back to you, Alma.
Thank you, Patricia. Battery swapping stations for electric motorbikes are now a common sight in Taiwan's capital, Taipei, with the startup Gogoro flourishing and eyeing a listing on the New York Stock Exchange. Here's Keith Ong for the report. Keith.
Why waste time recharging your e-bikes when you can swap batteries? And this is what this company here in Taiwan is doing. Gogoro has set up over 2,300 battery swapping stations across the country since 2015.
I think the most unique thing about what we did in Taiwan today is that before Gogoro started in Taiwan, electric two-wheeler only made up less than 1% of the overall sales of two-wheelers in the market today. Now, after we started, and in just 5 to 6 years, we grew that market from less than 1% to now over 10% overall in Taiwan.
The time-saving stations have encouraged more riders to transition to e-bikes.
以台北这个都会区来讲，它的换电站一开始没有那么方便，可是到我记得17年吧，还18年就开始布局的很快，然后其实你在路上走路都可以遇到很多，然后它到新的站也会通知你的 email， 因为它会知道你最长的生活的区块在哪，然后它会告诉你说你的附近又增加了哪个新的地方，你可以去换电。对，所以我觉得在生活上使用起来没有什么太大问题。
It is also helping to reduce air pollution in big cities.
We have swapped over 240 million battery swaps from the day we started to now, and accumulated together a saving of 360,000 tons of CO2 and prevented that from emitting into the air. With millions of people living on top of each other, where space and time is really hard to come by, the only transition to electric that is possible is not through the traditional tether charging, but really through battery swapping.
Gogoro is planning to expand in other countries in Asia.
Going after the world's largest two-wheeler market, India, China, and Indonesia, is what we're focused on for the next phase. Taking really all the lessons learned and all the capability and all the technology that we have developed in Taiwan, and then going into those large markets to make an impact.
The company is eyeing a listing on the New York Stock Exchange this year.
Great technology companies all are listed on the NASDAQ. And for Gogoro, we're super proud to be going to such a platform for us to be able to not only tell to the world that we are at that level, but also at the same time, really educate the investor market as to the potential of what two-wheel electrification really means. Battery swapping was a real game changer and is a real game changer as we go into other markets, large-scale markets.
Reporting from Taiwan, this is Keith Ong. Back to you, Amma.
Thank you, Keith. Meanwhile, Tesla welcomed throngs of electric car lovers to Texas for a huge party dubbed a cyber rodeo to inaugurate a manufacturing plant the size of 100 soccer fields. It's equivalent to 3 Pentagons, according to Chief Executive Elon Musk, telling a cheering crowd inside the factory. Let's listen in.
Still rock my necklace with a cup and a crease. Still got love for the streets, repping 2 and 3. Still the beat bang, still doing.
And this building is the most advanced car factory that Earth has ever seen. What I can say is we're going to move to just truly massive scale. Scale that no company has ever achieved in the history of humanity. In order to make a real difference, a really big difference to sustainability, we have to make a lot of cars, we have to make a lot of stationary packs to transition the world to sustainable technology as quickly as possible. It may be hard to imagine it, but as you see Optimus develop, and we're obviously going to make sure it's safe, no Terminator stuff or that kind of thing. But it's really going to transform the world, I think, to a degree even greater than the cars. And then we've got, and I think we have a shot at being in production for version 1 of Optimus, hopefully next year.
The move to a U.S. state known for conservative Republican politics is seen by some as Musk stepping away from the liberal Silicon Valley culture in which he made his fortune. The South African-born serial entrepreneur is now ranked the world's richest man. He founded Tesla in Silicon Valley in 2003, but he shifted its headquarters to Texas late last year. Musk has clashed with California regulators, particularly when health precautions mandated at the height of the pandemic closed Tesla's Fremont plant. California is also investigating whether discrimination took place at Tesla's plant there. Musk told the crowd that Tesla was continuing to expand in California but was running out of room there. Part of the Texas allure is a lack of corporate or personal income taxes. Tesla received more than $60 million in tax breaks to build the factory. And the first fully private mission to the International Space Station blasted off from Florida with a 4-member crew from startup company Axiom Space. NASA has hailed the 3-way partnership with Axiom and SpaceX as a key step towards commercializing the region of space known as low Earth orbit, leaving the agency to focus on more ambitious voyages deeper into the cosmos. Take a look.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Stop. Go Falcon. Go Dragon. Godspeed. Axiom 1.
You know, we right now are doing, this is our first step. We're working with a commercial company to have them come to our International Space Station. And we're learning to work together and figuring out how to work together. And this is going to be an important step for us because moving forward, we would actually like to now be able to buy a ride and time on orbit with a commercial company to be able to have them do that from them. And then in the future, you know, we're going to have Space Station for another 8 years. But we would like by the early 2030s for us to be flipping the roles and have our professional astronauts going up and checking and doing and focusing on the research and technology we need for exploration, but allowing commercial providers to be doing the hard work of maintaining the laboratory.
On the onboard camera. For Crew Dragon Endeavour, there you can see a live view inside our Dragon. Looks like the crew is beginning to adjust station. It has separated. There's a view inside.
We had nominal dehumidifier activation and service section Draco
The
checkouts.
Axiom Mission 1, or the AX-1, is former NASA astronaut Michael Lopez Alegria, a dual citizen of the U.S. and Spain, who flew to space 4 times over his 20-year career and last visited the ISS in 2007. He is joined by 3 paying crewmates: American real estate investor Larry Connor, Canadian investor and philanthropist Mark Pathy, and Israeli former fighter pilot, investor and philanthropist Eitan Stib. The widely reported price for tickets, which includes 8 days on the outpost before eventual splashdown in the Atlantic, is, take a listen, $55 million. While wealthy private citizens have visited the ISS before, AX-1 is the first mission featuring an all-private crew flying a private spacecraft to the outpost. Axiom pays SpaceX for transportation, and NASA also charges Axiom for use of the ISS.
Godspeed AX-1.
In other space news, the first audio recordings on Mars revealed a quiet planet with occasional gusts of wind where 2 different speeds of sound would have a strange delayed effect on hearing, according to scientists. After NASA's Perseverance rover landed on Mars in February last year, its 2 microphones started recording, allowing scientists to hear what it is like on the red planet for the first time. Let's listen in. Now, the result of the recordings, a new understanding of strange characteristics of the Martian atmosphere, where the speed of sound is slower than on Earth and varies with pitch or frequency. Now, to other news now. Long neglected by the multi-billion-dollar gaming industry, accessibility for deaf players is increasingly front of mind for game developers, a welcome change for gamer Chris Robinson. It's part of a larger push for inclusivity in the gaming world for disabled people, a change that not only meets ethical concerns around inclusivity, but also opens up a lucrative market of keen gamers. Take a look.
We found it for you, Papa Fernando. But look at it.
I am really, sad but happy. So much happy at the same time. Like sad that it took so long for this to happen, but I'm happy that it finally happened. I felt excluded. I didn't feel like I belonged in the gaming world because I was not able to play it or understand it or just not be able to be part of it. So it really feels bad. It just feels like you're not wanted. At first, I thought I can't do anything, and then I realized if I speak up about it, I could change something. And now, normally it's mostly sound reliant for a scary game. You have to hear the sound effects and stuff like that. I can't hear that. So with the best, I can feel it. So I was able to feel something that I can't hear in the game. And it really helps a lot. This one's my favorite one because it has more vibration spot on the best. And that's the caption for what's happening around. Subtitle. Make it a little
As always, I'll end the day on a thoughtful note. Our ability to look back and smile at our past is proof that God's plan is to keep us moving forward. This has been Eagle News International. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay alert, stay informed, because we live in interesting times. Good night.